Good morning, my dear friends. Today's Tanya is very, very, very unique and special. We're speaking about, of course, the Tanya teaches us that there are two basic, if you want to call it drive, souls within us. We have the animal soul, which is quite simple. Like an animal, we want to survive, we want pleasure, we don't want pain, which is kind of similar to all animals. Of course, as the Alter Rebbe says, that within good people there's also compassion, but that's an instinct as well. We feel bad. Even animals have compassion. But then we have a divine soul, particularly within the Jewish people. God has united his soul with their soul. It's a part of God. And this soul, which comes from a very high place in heaven, in fact, we all have a spark of God in us, has just this incredible yearning for God. As one addict says, its addiction is a big hole in the soul. We're just looking for God, which is why those that go through the 12-step program and find God feel so much better. So the Tanya teaches us that these two souls, the drive for God and the drive for just pleasure, basically, are antithesis to each other. That doesn't mean that godliness can't be pleasurable, but is the focus on just filling an instinct, or is the focus on godliness and doing the reason that I'm here in this world? And so the very highest type of person is called a tzaddik, or complete tzaddik, and there are one or two in a generation, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Lubavitch Rebbe. And what's unique about them is that their love for God is not even a selfish love. It's not even for the pleasure that God gives me. That's usually a little bit of the godly soul's attraction, because it's in love with God, it feels God, it knows the greatness of God. But rather, it is such a deep bond. It's like a story where there was a individual who the king said everybody had to come, one person from every family, to mill. And so he was a miller, so he asked his father to be the miller, because he didn't want his father to have to go be the miller for the king. He'd rather he do it. It's like a son who literally loves his parents so much, which many children do, that they're willing to give their life for the parent. And that's real love. When you really love someone, if you actually want to know if you love someone, ask yourself, am I willing to give my life? Otherwise, you might just kind of be using them maybe, but if you had real love for someone, that reverence, you'll be willing to give your life for them. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov says we should be willing to give our life for every Jew that we never even met. And good people, it's a separate subject. So the bottom line is, this is the idea that the tzaddik, he's not serving God because he's receiving a pleasure, but he loves God so much he understands what God's pleasure is. And this, like Reb Levi Yitzchak Bartitchev, he had such a love for people, he understood that this is what God wants. The Baal Shem Tov, we see this clearly. The Rebbe, he dedicated his life to people. They understand that this is the world that God wants. And this is what we have to emulate. The Rebbe said that today we can all become a tzaddik, and certainly everything that we've been through, humbled by so much, we could be a tzaddik gomer. We can, and most people in a certain sense are, we can give our lives to a higher purpose. It's like we've said before, the highest is like Rebbe quotes in the Rambam, just doing the truth because it's the truth, knowing that the will of God, and that's where the Rebbe says our will and God's will are actually the same. We merge wills because our desires are actually to continuously give and help, and this is God's desires too. So just doing it in alignment with God is really the ultimate